When an older person passes away, families often wonder what truly happens to their soul in the days that follow. This is a question that spans generations, intertwining beliefs, fears, and hopes. Ian Stevenson, a respected researcher in the field of consciousness studies, dedicated decades to understanding how the post-death experience could be observed and reported. What he discovered is noteworthy because it doesn't rely solely on religion or philosophy, but on concrete accounts and patterns he gathered. In the first moments after death, Stevenson suggests that the soul still maintains a connection with the body, as if the transition were gradual. This topic sparks a great deal of curiosity, especially because it involves a little discussed period, the 33 days after death. Few know that several ancient cultures already mentioned a similar duration for a passage stage. Stevenson's studies helped shed light on these traditions, offering a rational perspective on something so delicate. And it is precisely this approach that makes the subject so valuable for understanding and reflection. If you think this content can help others, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like to support this work. The researcher observed that in the first few days, the soul experiences a kind of adaptation, as if recognizing that physical life has ended, but emotional ties still remain with those left behind. This period can be confusing, both for the soul and for family members who feel an almost palpable presence at home. Many accounts Stevenson analyzed show coincidences between dreams, impressions, and subtle signs perceived by those who lived with the departed elder, suggesting that the connection isn't immediately broken. Approaching the 7th day, according to various traditions and reinforced by field studies, something changes. It's as if the soul begins to understand that it needs to move forward. Stevenson noted that this point marks a first emotional farewell, when the soul realizes there's no turning back. This realization isn't traumatic, but it's an important step in the detachment process. It's also when family members report feeling a sudden sense of relief, even amidst their grief. Accounts from different cultures and Stevenson's research seem to converge on the idea that between the 10th and 20th day, the soul enters a more stable state. It's as if it's gathering its memories, understanding its own journey, and assimilating life's lessons. Stevenson documented testimonies from mediums and people who had near-death experiences, and the similarity in details is striking. A kind of clarity emerges for the soul, an understanding that it's moving to another stage. And then come the 33 days, which many consider a milestone. According to Stevenson, it's at this point that the soul completes a cycle of detachment from earthly reality. This doesn't mean forgetfulness or abandonment, but rather a shift in plane. The energy that once circulated between the body, mind, and spirit finds a new organization. It's as if the soul takes one last review of everything it has lived, leaving behind what needs to stay and taking with it what truly matters to move on. Stevenson believed that understanding what occurs during these 33 days is fundamental to changing how we deal with death. He said that this period isn't just about the departed soul, but also about those who remain. Families sense signs, memories intensify, and there's an almost instinctive need to perform rituals, light candles, or simply speak aloud to those who have passed on. These gestures seem simple, but according to the studies, they help the soul perceive that the farewell is being respected, which facilitates the transition to the next stage. He also observed that during this time, the soul maintains an emotional perception. This means it can pick up on feelings, especially the most intense ones, coming from family members. Pain, love, gratitude, and even anger can be perceived, and each of these emotions influences the experience of the departed. Stevenson emphasized that this doesn't mean the soul suffers or is punished, but that there's a field of exchange, a subtle space where human sensations still echo and are registered by it. Among the cases studied, there were reports of older individuals appearing in dreams to children or grandchildren, not as frightening apparitions, but as comforting presences. Many described that the deceased loved ones came with serene expressions, as if they wanted to say they were well. Stevenson valued these accounts because they showed a pattern. The soul seems to seek simple and gentle ways to communicate peace before definitively moving on, especially when the farewell in life was difficult or marked by silence. More skeptical scientists questioned the validity of these stories, but Stevenson was firm in using rigorous methods to document what he observed. He gathered interviews, compared details, and looked for repetitions of information across different cultures. What he found was a consistency that stood out. The stories came from different countries, languages, and religions, but described similar feelings and perceptions. This convergence is one of the strongest points of his research on what the soul experiences in the period after death. Gradually, Stevenson realized that the 33 days aren't a fixed barrier, but a natural cycle. Some souls seem to complete the transition sooner, while others take longer, depending on the intensity of bonds and life circumstances. Still, he noted that almost all went through similar moments: an initial period of confusion, a middle period of recognition, and a conclusion of serenity. This understanding helps explain why so many ancient traditions spoke of spiritual quarantines. The central point is that, according to Stevenson's findings, death isn't an abrupt cut, but a process with stages. The 33 days form an arc that closes the strongest connection with the physical world. From there, the soul moves to what he called a state of reorganization, a space where the essence continues, but free from the limits we know. This knowledge isn't just for scholars, but for anyone who has lost someone and seeks comfort in understanding what might be happening after the last breath. In the accounts analyzed by Stevenson, a curious pattern repeatedly appeared. Family members described moments when they smelled a familiar scent, heard a faint noise, or simply had the sensation that the person was nearby. These phenomena were neither constant nor dramatic, but discreet and subtle. For Stevenson, this indicated that the soul in the first few days still maintained a type of residual presence, almost like a farewell visit. This finding comforted many families as it gave greater meaning to these seemingly mundane signs. Another important aspect revealed by the research is how the soul reviews its own life. In the accounts, the idea of a calm and non-judgmental review emerges, where the elder recalls choices, joys, and regrets. Stevenson described this moment as a natural evaluation, without tribunals or punishments. The soul, he believed, observes events with a new perspective, like someone watching a film of their own journey. This process is essential for complete detachment and prepares the consciousness to move forward. Stevenson also noticed that the relationship of the living with the deceased directly influences how the soul approaches these 33 days. Words spoken, letters written, and even simple thoughts seem to carry weight at this time. When there are messages of gratitude and love, the transition is smoother. When there are conflicts or resentments, the farewell may take longer to be assimilated. This doesn't mean punishment, but it reinforces the importance of what we feel and express, even after someone has passed on. Spiritual traditions in different parts of the world have always spoken of periods of mourning that vary between 30 and 40 days. Stevenson saw a connection between these ancient practices and the modern accounts he studied. He argued that rituals, wakes, and prayers were not just cultural acts, but intuitive responses to what the soul experiences. This kind of perception helps explain why so many families feel relief when performing ceremonies, even when they don't follow a specific religion. As the days pass, Stevenson observed that the soul gradually moves away from places and people, but without abrupt ruptures. It's as if each memory is gently detached, making room for a new state of existence. This detachment doesn't mean forgetfulness, but rather a reorganization of what the soul carries. For family members, this moment is marked by a different feeling of silence, as if the atmosphere becomes lighter after weeks of subtle signs. Stevenson concluded that the 33 days represent a period of learning for both the soul and the living. While the soul adapts to the new plane, family members learn to cope with physical absence and invisible presence. This dual journey creates a balance, a natural closure that cannot be rushed or interrupted. By understanding this, we gain a new way of looking at loss, realizing that farewell is a shared process that unites and transforms us in profound ways. Stevenson emphasized that this process has no relation to punishments or rewards, but rather to the adaptation of consciousness. He believed that the older soul, upon completing the 33 days, reached a different state of clarity, an expanded perception that allowed for a more serene understanding of life. This understanding brought a sense of peace, not only for the departed, but also for those left behind. After all, comprehending that the transition is gradual lightens the burden of grief, transforming fear into understanding. Family members, often unknowingly, actively participate in this passage. A simple prayer, a silent conversation, or even a thought of affection contributes to the soul moving on peacefully. Stevenson insisted that small gestures had real power at this time. He said that it didn't matter what religion, creed, or lack thereof, because what reached the soul was the intention. This perception brought comfort to those who carried guilt, showing that it's never too late to send love. As the weeks passed, Stevenson noted that old memories resurfaced, almost like disconnected fragments. The soul, he believed, revisits forgotten situations connected to childhood, youth, or old age. There's no logical order, but a mosaic of memories that gradually finds meaning. This phenomenon might explain why close individuals report dreams with scenes from the past or inexplicable sensations. It's as if, for a brief time, the physical world receives echoes of these internal reviews. Traditions that speak of 33 days have always been seen as symbolic rituals, but Stevenson's studies offered an observable basis for these beliefs. He gathered hundreds of stories from different continents, and the similarity of the accounts surprised even the most skeptical. The notion of a cycle of just over a month seemed to repeat naturally, almost universally. This finding brought a sense of order, that life and death follow a rhythm that transcends cultures and times. The researcher stated that accepting this rhythm helps to deal with pain. Instead of imagining death as an abrupt cut, he suggested viewing it as a journey taken in stages, which requires time and respect. This perspective offers something valuable to those who have lost someone. The idea that a line of connection still exists, a period of farewell that should not be interrupted by haste or denial. Grief becomes less burdensome when we know it has a purpose. On the 33rd day, according to Stevenson, the soul completes what he called liberation. It's a point where the bond with the body and physical space definitively dissolves. The soul doesn't lose love or memories, but it ceases to be bound to what we knew as reality. For the living, this means the cycle of farewell concludes. For the soul, it's the chance to move on unburdened. This final stage is silent, yet profoundly meaningful and transformative. When describing liberation, Stevenson emphasized that there was no pain or rupture, but a state of lightness. He used the expression clean transition to explain that the soul simply detaches from what held it. This idea brought relief to those who feared suffering after death. Knowing that the passage is gentle and natural comforted families and offered a new way to cope with goodbyes. It was as if the last day of this cycle was a sigh of relief for both sides, a calm conclusion to a long journey. The accounts show that, after this period, the feeling of presence noticeably diminishes. People who previously had recurring dreams or felt subtle signs report a new calm, almost a complete silence. Stevenson interpreted this as an indication that the soul has moved on but not disappeared. It simply changed its state, ceasing to send direct echoes. This perception helps the living understand that there was no abandonment, but confirmation that the process was completed in a healthy way. During his research, Stevenson also cautioned about something essential. Each soul lives this cycle uniquely. Despite patterns, each person carries different stories, emotions, and bonds, and all of this influences how the 33 days are experienced. This singularity explains why some families feel intense signs and others perceive almost nothing. There's no right or wrong, just distinct paths to reach the same final liberation, which reinforces the importance of respecting each individual's experience. Stevenson's work ended up inspiring more conscious grieving practices. Many families began to view rituals not as obligations, but as opportunities to actively participate in the farewell. Small ceremonies, words spoken aloud, or moments of silence gained new meanings. By understanding that these gestures echo through the 33 days, those left behind find comfort, and the soul, according to the accounts, finds peace. This subtle interaction creates a sense of continuity between worlds. There's also a valuable lesson for those who fear death. Knowing that the transition is gradual and filled with understanding changes how we face the end of life. Stevenson said that reflecting on this during life helps reduce fear and increase serenity. He suggested that talking openly about death, especially with older individuals, is not an act of despair but of preparation. This frank conversation, he believed, can transform fear into acceptance and anguish into learning. In the end, Stevenson's legacy is not just scientific but human. His studies remind us that death is not an emptiness but a passage that deserves to be understood. The 33 days after an elder's passing become then a time of farewell, reflection, and healing. Knowing this doesn't eliminate the pain, but offers a map to navigate it. And by sharing these discoveries, we can help others face grief with more ease and courage, keeping alive the connection of love that never breaks. Stevenson always reinforced that understanding this cycle directly impacts how we treat the last days of those we love. Knowing that the first moments after death are still full of connections reminds us to act with calm and respect. Simple gestures like maintaining a serene environment, avoiding conflicts, and cultivating kind words become powerful actions. This is because, according to him, these signs reach the soul and aid in the passage. Grief doesn't have to be a painful rupture, but rather a silent dialogue. Many of the documented cases showed how families found solace in this understanding. People who carried regrets, such as unresolved arguments, felt relief speaking aloud to the departed. Stevenson pointed out that during these 33 days, sincere words were still perceived, and that these demonstrations had the power to soften the farewell. This perception transformed pain into action and guilt into reconciliation, allowing both the living and the departed to find peace together. Another point he always addressed is that the 33-day cycle does not belong to a specific religion. Despite echoing ancient beliefs, Stevenson's observations show that the soul's experience is universal. Christians, Buddhists, spiritualists, and even people without faith reported similar impressions. This universality brings a powerful message. The passage does not distinguish beliefs, and farewell is a natural process for every human being. This brings cultures closer and generates greater respect for each other's experience. As the study became known, more people began to seek comfort in this knowledge. Hospitals, nursing homes, and grieving families found in Stevenson's words a practical explanation for something that seemed mysterious. This changed how we care for the elderly, even before death. Realizing that there is a cycle of transition inspires more humanity, reinforcing the importance of facing the last chapters of life with dignity and serenity. The 33 days are not just a concept, but an invitation to view death with less fear and more understanding. By realizing that there is a path, that the soul is not lost or suffering, the emptiness becomes less heavy. Stevenson showed that, even after the physical end, there is a thread of continuity that sustains hope. This view does not erase longing, but gives it a place, making grief a process of love and not just pain. Now that you understand this cycle, you can look at loss differently. Remember that the first few days are a slow goodbye, a time when gestures and words still hold meaning. This is not cause for fear, but to feel part of something greater. If this content has helped you reflect and brought comfort, please share it with someone else who might need this message, and subscribe to the channel to continue receiving stories that bring understanding and serenity to life and to the soul.